Welcome to Students Over Systems, where we talk with the creators, advocates, and beneficiaries of education freedom. I'm your host, Jenny Gentles. On today's episode, we're going to talk about attendance zones, address sharing, and access to residentially assigned public schools. For this important discussion, we're joined by Kelley Williams-Bolar, an educator and mother. Kelley will discuss her story of being jailed for simply enrolling her children in a nearby public school. Kelley, thank you so much for joining us on Students Over Systems.
And thank you so much for having me. I am so honored.
So, Kelley, let's talk about your daughters and where they are now. They're grown-ups now, right?
Yes, they're young ladies now. Yes.
Okay. So when we're talking about this story of attendance zones and address sharing and your experience with that, we'll need to go back in time and talk about where you were and how old your girls were. So you were raising your kids in Ohio. Where were you living at the time?
Yes. So I was living in Akron, Ohio, and I had just gotten my divorce from their father. So I had been married for 10 years. And I was living in Akron. My parents lived in Copley, Ohio. And, every year my dad would say, well, first let me go back. My oldest daughter was going to middle school. And my youngest daughter was in third grade. So that's that. And then, so my father didn't live far from me. We both lived off of a main street called Copley. But I lived in Akron and my dad lived in Copley Township. Okay. So, my dad would, he would say, Kelley, just bring your girls out here. Because my father had his own business, but then he got sick. And once he became ill, he didn't do much anymore. He stayed home, and he was like, I can watch your girls while I was in college, and I was working part-time. I was subbing as a paraprofessional. That's like a teacher assistant. So working with students with multiple handicaps. So he said, so I said, okay. So one year I said, okay, I'll do it. And went out to the school to get the information I needed and got a tour. The principal in the elementary school gave me a tour. He showed me around. It was phenomenal, top-notch public school. I had never seen anything like it. So that's the beginning of it. I know you probably want to ask me more questions, but that's the beginning. They were in third grade, and my youngest was in third, and my oldest was going to middle school.
Okay, so on top of the logistics of working through childcare and who's going to watch your girls after school, your daughters were also encountering various experiences at their residentially assigned public school that had you concerned. Was it your approaching middle school daughter that you were particularly concerned about?
Yes, she had bullying issues. Girls there would bully her, and she didn't want to go back to the school. She didn't like it because the kids were so mean. And my daughters are very gentle, docile. And she had issues with that. And it took some adjusting. And at the time I didn't have any alternative. So just go to school, I would talk to the teachers, I would talk to the administrators, but nothing really came about it. And I got frustrated because I'm like, what else do you do if you go through the protocols and then your child still is being bullied? So That's why I ended up taking my daughters out to my parents' address.
Well, I think a lot of people have a misconception that top of everybody's mind are the test scores and the academic outcomes of schools. But when you interview parents, a lot of times top of mind would be safety, and that includes safety and protection from bullying. So I don't think that this is an unusual experience that you had. You knew that your child needed a different environment. So you've researched this alternative. It seems logical. Your dad can help out. He's got the time. These schools in this other area would be a better fit. About how far away are we talking?
It was about my father's address to my address was about 20 minutes, if that, maybe 18 minutes. I mean, you get technical, about 18 minutes. Mm-hmm. And since you mentioned that earlier about the school that she attended was F-rated. Many parents may not know, and it's good to find out that what is your school rated? And I didn't know at the time until I found out they were rated an F. So that's a big deal, And so I was 18 minutes away from my mom and dad's address. Um, and most kids in that suburban area were bused anyway. Because it,
Okay. And do you know what the ratings were of the schools that were residentially assigned in your
oh,
father's area?
it was absolutely perfect. It was like A minus, B average. It was really a good, really their grade level was, or their grade was good.
Okay. And sometimes it can be quite hard to get an F rating on the school rating systems that states have put in place. So you're talking about really consistently failing to do their job school when you're talking about an F-rated school. And actually in Florida, one of the the very first school choice program, private school choice program in Florida was the Opportunity Scholarship Program down there, where students were given scholarships or vouchers if they had been assigned to a school that was rated an F twice. That was unfortunately struck down by the Florida Supreme Court years ago, but it was understandable. Like, look, this public school is failing to do its job over and
Yeah,
over, and those kids need other options. So you went and you found other options
I did.
for your girls. And how long did they attend these schools in your
They
father's?
attended that school, Copley Fairlawn City Schools, for 2 years. Now, mind you, I had no idea about Ed Choice or any other alternative. I didn't know that at the time. But yeah, so they attended that school for 2 years, and they loved it. They really loved the school, the environment, the students. As far as bullying, they had zero tolerance. I didn't even hear anything. My daughters never came home and said, such and such was being mean to me today. That didn't happen.
So peace of mind for you then, as soon as you got them out there. All right. Well, the reason I know about your story is because years ago I heard you tell what happened next. So it seems like things are going well. You've got your kids in a school that's a good fit. It's safe. It's well rated when it comes to academics. It's near family. But what was the problem from a school district perspective?
So the first year they have, I'm not for certain what these people are what their position is for the school, but they come out to your home, and they will knock on your door and they ask you, can they look into your bathroom to see how many brushes are there. They want to look into your bedroom, see if it's look in your closets to see what's going on, making sure your children have children's clothes in the closets. That happened the first year, but really it wasn't much after that. It was really quiet. Summer goes by. That fall, I received a letter maybe a month into the school district, into the school year, and it said, we have clear and convincing evidence that you don't live in the area, and that, but we want you to come in for a meeting. So me and my dad went in for the meeting. And I mean, I'm just being honest, I was nervous. I never did anything like this before. So we get there, and my dad, he is so upset because there's an attorney there. And he was like, why would you have but I guess in my father's mind, if they have an attorney, by right, they should tell us that we're going to have an attorney here, school's attorney, whatever. So we could have had maybe an attorney, so my father knew this was serious, because why would they have an attorney there? So that day they said that they had hired an investigator, and they followed me around for like 2 weeks, like 14 days, 12 to 14 days. And, I wanted to try to plead our case. It was like, just want my kids to be in a safe environment, a good school. And that's all I wanted. It wasn't, my kids aren't behavior kids. They're not bad kids at all. And I just wanted them to be in an environment that they can learn and be prosperous. That's all I wanted. It was really simple, just
Mhm.
simple. I was just simple. And they were very aggressive. And so I remember leaving. We got something called the grandparent power of attorney. Well, if you look up, even now, I'm pretty sure that they still allow the grandparent power of attorney at the Copley Fairlawn City Schools on their website. So, but they didn't want it. They didn't want anything to do with it. We had got it. The judge, she gave it to us. After this is after all of that had happened,
Mhm.
and they fought it that entire second school year. So then that June, the judge sent me a letter. She just said, you know what? They're fighting it. Just take the kids out. Okay. I had no clue they were continuing, like going to court and talking about it. No, I had no clue. Um, so I removed my daughters 18 months later in October going into the holidays. I just remember it was very close to the holidays because, holiday season, who wants an indictment? And so I received an indictment. Well, I mean, you don't want an indictment at all. You
Thank
know,
you.
you don't want one at all. So let me clear that up. But so I get a postcard in the mail and it says Kelley Williams-Bolar versus Ohio. I'm like, what is this?
Wait, Ohio, because this is the school district that's been investigating you, and now the state's involved?
The state got involved. They got a grand jury. They it was deep. And so I called my dad that same day and I was like, Dad, I got this Ohio versus Kelley Williams-Bolar. And I don't even know if it said indictment, but it was a postcard, and that's what for certain it said that. So my
Mhm.
dad said, "Come over and sit here with me, and we'll see." And when the mailman ran, he told me to go out to the street and get the mail, and I went out, and yep, we both had it at the same time, and that's when it began. We were just sitting there because, mind you, this was some time later. This was not the same time. This was 18 months later. So it's like, what is this? We go to court. We're sitting there. I've never sat in court before. Just to sit in court in a courtroom is something else. So here I'm sitting there, and you're seeing criminals, you're seeing bad people. I'm talking
Mhm.
people that beat up people, rapists, murderers, people that's doing things that you're not even around, and you don't, and so you're looking at and people coming in shackled up. What is that called? Well, yeah, shackled. So
Yeah,
they're
like with handcuffs, you mean?
yeah, yes,
Mhm.
people are coming in like that, and me and my dad, we're just looking at them, and I'm like, this is this can't. What did we do? So they call our number, they call our name. We approach the bench, and it's Copley, Fairlawn City Schools, and they have an indictment: grand theft, tampering with documents, grand theft of $35,000 per child. So they said that I stole $70,000 of public education. And they indicted that, and me and my dad both got these major huge charges. And it was I was so scared. I'd never been in trouble before, ever. Maybe a ticket that my car was parked somewhere,
Mhm.
that shouldn't be parked. That's the biggest thing I've ever had. And so that's when the process began.
So the $70,000, they obviously very highly value their education. Over what period of time were they accusing you of having stolen education?
Those 2 past years.
2 years. So they're saying $35,000 per child
Yes.
for the two
Ye-
years.
Yes.
Again, they're really highly valuing their education, because what years are we talking about? This was a while ago.
This was a while ago. This was in '07, '08, and I got indicted at the end of 10 going into 11.
Okay, and at that point, you've had your children out
Out.
of that school district. They're back in your residentially assigned
Yes.
school
Mhm.
district, and they're
Long
taking
gone.
this extra action, which I would imagine would involve some cost on their part to continue to pursue this.
Yes. Like, and if you have you ever heard of something called the discovery box?
No.
Okay, so a discovery box uh is what the prosecutors go and look for. Like, they look for everything. Your whole entire history will be in this box. So they had stuff even prior to my birth. They had information from my great aunt who lived in North Carolina. Like, they had stuff in there. The box was I had to get a one of those crate things to move the box from the attorney's office to my house. It was every kind of piece of paper that you can imagine. And it's like, so you guys were digging that deep to find something in our family, even to try to even say that our family was not of trustworthiness or something, because I'm like, this is
Mhm.
my great aunt. Why would her name be in this discovery box? It
Oh my gosh.
it
Okay,
was
and all of this is because your children were attending a school that they were not residentially assigned to, and you had done what is called address sharing. And let's just like pull this back from your personal story a little bit. I read in an article in USA Today that was published not that long ago that the practice of address sharing is, I think the word they used is pervasive. It's not only widespread, so pervasive and widespread, this address sharing, but it also cuts across geographic communities, racial groups, and income levels. And this is something that I've talked about with Tim DeRoche, who has launched an organization called Available to All in a previous Students Over Systems episode. So a pervasive, widespread practice, but I would like to think that school districts are not spending taxpayer money consistently, regularly doing what they did to your family. It's awful what happened to your family. It seems like it would be a lot of taxpayer resources if they're pursuing this every time. In your experience, have you been encountering other families who've had a similar experience to yours?
well, at that time, actually, there was a mom, and so I'll say this: it was a mom. She had 2 boys. Her children were going out there as well. I mean, it was dozens of us, honestly. It was
Mhm,
quite a few of us. And we didn't invent it. It's been going on for quite some time.
mhm.
But it was quite a few of us, and we all were doing it. And we were kind of like, what is that called? Like I would stop and pick up her boys. She would come and get my girls. We
Carpool.
would carpool, yeah. And so it was off and on, but I would never, I never spoke on her name to them or anything because I didn't want to I was in enough hot water. I wouldn't want to put someone else in that kind of predicament. But
Mhm.
yes, it was many people, and they're still doing it today. People are still doing that right now.
So it kind of seems like they went after your family to set an example to other families. Like, is it a way of, do they target particular families to try to send a message? Hey, we know what's going on. If you all continue doing this, this also is going to happen to you. Did you get any sense that that was one of their goals?
Well, what is that? Good Morning America. Oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to say anyone's name or anything on here.
That's okay.
Um,
Go
okay,
ahead.
so on Good Morning America, Robin, and I forgot her last name, but she was like the commentator or the newscaster. She had a video of it, and I think it's still online. And you can actually hear the Judge Patricia Cosgrove state that basically, in her wording, she states, and I want to say it exactly how she said it. We want to do this to deter any other parent from
Mhm.
doing this what you did. So yeah, it was done to set to set the pace, set example. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry that your family was singled out, and especially if this was a fairly common practice in that area. And as we've just heard, it's pervasive and widespread
Yes.
in many places of the country. Okay, so that same USA Today article said that in at least 24 states, parents who address share can be criminally prosecuted. They often face steep fines, and in
Mhm.
some cases, like with you, jail sentences. So I guess we're fast forwarding to the end of the story. That judge was saying she wanted to deter others, she wanted to send a message, and part of that process was sentencing you to jail.
Yes. So I got sentenced to 10 days. I served 9 of the 10. I was on probation for 3 years. I had to do what I
You
want
were
to
on
say.
probation for 3 years?
And I had 80 hours of community service. I had to write so many pages to the judge saying what I did was wrong. Like it was very, very. It was. First of all, at that before that happened, I was such a private person, just quiet person living my life. And then when something like this happens, and now everybody knows, and
Mhm.
just imagine something like that happens, and everybody in the community knows, and now you got communities even dividing. It's a division, and it was just hard. It was hard. Went through a depression where I was just staying in my bed, staying in my room, not even being the big bubbly mom that I used to be. Getting up in the morning, making sure my daughters are clean and teeth brushed and eating and making sure we're living and being happy. I went to this deep depression because of that. It was a life. It changed my life. And that's before my dad, before his situation with it all.
So I'm so sorry. So jail for 9 days, probation for 3 years. It
Mhm.
seems like for you, since then, you have like gotten back on track. You're an educator, so you
Yes,
are working in the school system, even though the
yes.
school system did this to you. Not the same one that did this
No.
to you, but you are an educator. You are serving children in your community. Tell us what happened with your father.
So me and my dad we stood trial together. We had the exact same attorney, and not realizing it's kind of like a conflict of interest to have this same attorney serve on the same time, being your attorney.
Right, but
You
who would
being
know how to navigate something like this? Like,
right, but
yeah.
he did. And so what happened was they had to drop my dad's charges because my dad lived there. He owned land there. He had his own house there. He
Mhm.
built the home onto the land that was his property. So they had to let him. Um, they had to drop those charges with my dad. But mind you, they didn't drop it until after the trial. And then, like as time was going, then he realized, well, we can't. I didn't. There's nothing saying that he enrolled them. Only me. I was
Mhm.
the one that enrolled them. So they had to drop the charges. So guess what? My dad was standing before the judge, and he was like, "I feel like we're being persecuted, and I feel like we're being prosecuted." He was like, "This is insane." And the moment my father stated, and it could still be online, I don't know, because it was online, but the moment my dad stated to them that he had strokes, he was sick, he was on a disability, they went right in and they looked at his age and they said, "Well, guess what? We're going to charge you for stealing medical insurance, $100,000 of medical insurance." And so
Because he was on a disability at an age that didn't
and at a
qualify?
certain age, you're supposed to. It's been a while now, so it's
We
either
don't need to go into the details, but basically they looked for an opportunity to punish him in some other way.
yes, yes, because remember at that time the situation with me had went completely viral. It went everywhere. Well, they don't want anyone coming to mess up their apple creek. Is that a way? Isn't that what they used to say? Apple creek. Don't stir up the apple creek or something like that. It's a phrase people used to say years ago in the South. Just in other words, this is our world, and we don't need anyone coming in to dictate or to tell us how to do whatever.
Huh.
So it was a more punishment. So now it's more punishment. So now my dad already had a stroke prior to all of this. Now he got to deal with this, and they had to let him go. So now that's one trial. Few weeks later, he had to go to on another trial. Before that, he hadn't. There was no issues. So now he has another trial to go on, and they said you stole $100,000. We're going to put you in a penitentiary for an entire year
A
because
year.
yes. So he went to jail in June. June he went to jail. Um, July, 4 weeks into it, he stopped walking. He couldn't walk anymore. He was 65 years old. He had committed his birthday. My birthday is July 15th. My dad's birthday is July 17th. We always celebrated our birthday together. I'm trying not to get upset because I don't want to get upset. So, um, so he So I remember, calling home and he said he couldn't walk anymore. It's like, what do you mean? I said, well, you're going to be okay. You're going to be just fine. Just stay strong. I mean, he's only in his 60s. I feel that's young. You're going to be strong. You're going to be fine. Just make it the few more months, which we were working with attorneys. We were working with people that were really trying to get him out because they knew it was unjust. They knew it was unjust. And so by that fall, and remember when I tried to go see my dad, I was A and he was B. They wouldn't let me see him for a while. We had to get permission. It was deep. You would have thought we were Bonnie and Clyde or something. You would have thought we had done something so horrific. So let me get my mind right. I don't want to get emotional. So that fall, I was able to go see him, started my visitations with him. But by that winter, he was on dialysis. He was on dialysis. He was just all the way messed up. He had a trach in his throat. Couldn't talk. He had these thing called mini strokes. And it was just horrific. And we were still trying to get him out, and they wouldn't let him out. They would not let him out because they were so mad because of the attention that had been drawn to this situation. So by May, see my daughter. I have to go by my. I forget what my dad's passing. I have to go by my daughter's birthdays because my daughter's birthdays is May 7th and May 9th. My dad passed away May 10th. And we got a call at like 12 o'clock at night, and he was 100 miles away. So it wasn't like come now and so we could see him pass away. We could. And he was shackled to a bed. They had him when I was able to go see him. He was shackled to a bed with his arms and his legs like he was some criminal, and he wasn't. He was not a criminal. And I want to say that to tell the world that my dad was a good man. He would do anything for anyone. I'm so sorry.
Oh, Kelley, this is a horrific story that just gets more and more heartbreaking. Seems like too weak of a word here. Like,
I'm so sorry. I did not mean to get emotional. I'm so sorry.
Kelley, that you don't need to apologize for this. I just want to remind our listeners that what we're talking about is a story of children going to a school that was 15 to 20 miles away from their residentially assigned school. And then a situation that spiraled into this, where their mother spent time in jail and 3 years probation, and their grandfather passed away in jail. And I'm so sorry, Kelley, that happened to you, to your father, to your girls. It's remarkable the strength that you've had over all of these years telling this story, because I think sometimes the system does these things to silence people. Like, see, we showed you, and we deterred others by making you an example, and you're not having it.
No,
it's hard. Clearly, it's still hard to tell the story, but you're going to keep telling it.
I'm going to keep telling it because it's going to keep my father's legacy. It's going to keep him alive. He was a good man. He wasn't a mean man. He wasn't like that. He was a good person. And so I'm going to keep his name alive as long as I am alive to tell the story and the unjust and the super zealous prosecution that happened. It just shouldn't happen to a mom that's just trying to live her life and make sure her children are safe and educated, and a grandpa that just wanted to protect his family. What else? I wanted to say something else. And that's why I do this advocacy work. And that's why I travel and I speak and I work in a classroom. But when someone calls me, I'm there because I want to help so many children and parents and grandparents. And I don't want this to ever happen to another human being. And we are in 2024. And to even hear about parents being prosecuted or get into any kind of trouble because because this district jump or sharing addresses should not even be a thing. We got to make this better.
Well, Kelley, you're part of this this No More Lines coalition effort. I think you've been a No More Lines fellow, and you're linking arms with other mothers to speak up, to tell your story, and to advocate for policies, because it, as you said, like, it doesn't have to be this way. In plenty of places, it isn't this way. There is this thing called open enrollment. Families apply to schools. They go on tours like you did. They apply and enroll their children in schools. And then that is okay because the policies are in place that allow that. And open enrollment within a district, open enrollment across a district, those exist in places. And then there are policy proposals out there to take extra steps to make attendance zones that cut off educational opportunities based on housing, largely based on housing cost, to make that less of a powerful force in our society. Kelley, thank you so much for talking with us today. I'm wondering if you have any myths around attendance zones, around residentially assigned schools. We talk about school choice or education freedom a lot. You are talking about the freedom to educate your child in a school that's the best fit. Is there a myth that you would want to tackle based on your experience or your work in this arena?
I just think overall, I just believe that it's time to get rid of these zones. It's time to move forward. Everything is elevated in life in here in this great American place we live in, right? Like we advance, we move forward. We try to make things better as the years progress. Every generation is supposed to be better than the last. We have to go in this and look at this and get rid of and find out how we can make it better, with the open enrollment. I'm a liaison for Available to All with Tim DeRochi as well, so we have to get into this and revamp this and find a better way. And that's why I pray every day that no other parent will have what happened to me.
Well, Kelley, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story, for not just telling it once, but over and over and over, and for walking through what clearly is very painful memories, both to make a better future for families who are currently in the system, and to protect and preserve your father's legacy. Clearly, he was a generous man. He just wanted the best for his daughter and his granddaughter. So thank you so much for joining us today and telling your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We hope listeners found today's conversation informative and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode of Students Over Systems, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast app, and please share this episode with your friends. To learn more about the work of the IWF Education Freedom Center, please go to iwf.org/EFC. Thank you for listening to Students Over Systems. Until next time, keep celebrating education freedom and brighter futures.